Okay, it's Friday morning, May 1st, 2009, and I feel silly introducing him, but you know who it is, Mr. Dick Miller, one of the finest character actors in movie history. And if you're a genre fan in particular, Gremlins, Gremlins 2, The Terminator, the films of Roger Corman, Bucket of Blood. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mr. Miller.
My pleasure.
In looking over your resume, the films that you've been in, over 150 films in television roles, over 50 years in the business, and I believe your first film role, according to the IMDb, was Apache Woman,
Yes,
where you had multiple roles. Tell us what led to you getting into acting and led to that first film role.
Oh, God. Well, I had a friend, Jonathan Hayes. He was working for Roger Corman, and this was 1952, 53. 1953. And he said, come on, I got to deliver some packages to Roger. Come on down, I'll introduce you. And I said, okay, fine. I came out here to California as a writer. I had no intention of acting at the time.
Of movie scripts or television scripts? Or?
Just writing. I wrote comedy writing in New York for a while and came out to California. And so we went up to see Roger Corman. And he was, at the time, he was not sharing an office. He was sharing a desk. Things were pretty rough on him. And we were talking, where are you from? He said, I'm from New York. What do you do? I'm a writer. He says, oh, we don't need any writers. He says, we need actors. I said, I'm an actor.
Just off the cuff, I'm an actor.
Just like that. And he says, oh, fine. You want a part in the picture? I said, yeah. And that's how Apache Woman came about. 2 weeks later, I was working on the front of the camera.
And it actually says that you played multiple roles in Apache Woman.
I did. I worked about 3 days as a nice silent Indian, heavy makeup. And he said, Roger said to me, he said, how'd you like to play a cowboy for me? I said, you got another Western coming up? He said, no, in this picture.
In this picture.
I said, okay, fine. So I played a cowboy too.
And of course, you went on to do several films with Roger Corman, including having the title, well, not the title role, but the starring role in Bucket of Blood. And of course, Mr. Corman was known for being very frugal with his budget and working very quickly. How was it working under that parameter? I mean, did you enjoy that fast pace, or did you?
To me, it didn't matter. I didn't know what making films was. If you told me we had to shoot this whole film in a day, I would have done it. Well, we had 5-6 days to shoot a picture in those times. And so it just came natural. I enjoyed working fast. I still do today. I hate it when we get on a picture and you shoot a half a page in one day, and that's it. You sit around and wait.
Little Shop of Horrors, which of course you appeared in, is infamous for being the movie that was shot in 2 days. Was that true? Was it actually shot completed in 2 days?
It was. It's not completely true, because they had a night shooting, a couple of scenes downtown L.A. There was running scenes and things like that.
And of course you did. If there is a film by Joe Dante, there is going to be a role for Dick Miller. How did you meet Joe Dante? Obviously, he was a fan of your work, and how did that relationship start with Mr. Dante?
Joe was cutting commercials, coming attractions for Roger at the time, and he got a chance to do his first feature, which was,
I forget the name too. It was before The Howling.
Hollywood Boulevard.
Hollywood Boulevard, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he was going to do Hollywood Boulevard using a lot of pre-shot stuff, a lot of loose ends, a lot of old film, a lot of everything. Probably. And he was supposed to do the film, and Roger said, Dick Miller's got to do the film. So, yeah, that was kind of a guarantee that the picture would get done. And that's how I met him. I didn't know he was a fan or anything at the time.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, every movie since then he made, he's had a role for you. And, of course, a lot of fans' favorite, my favorite role of yours in a Joe Dante, a Joe Dante film is, of course, Mr. Futterman in Gremlins.
No.
I know you hear a lot about Mr. Futterman.
My favorite film is The Howling.
Oh, I love The Howling. No, I love The Howling. And, of course, you had a great role in that, too. But Mr. Futterman, what I liked about Mr. Futterman is when we watched it in the theaters, we assumed he came to a pretty grisly end.
He did. In the original script, he was killed.
And, of course, in Gremlins 2, you returned and actually turned the tables on the Gremlins.
They took care of that in the first film. When they looked at it, they decided too many people were getting killed in the picture.
Right.
And they said, well, how can we get away from this? They hadn't filmed any death scene. They just filmed the Gremlins driving this tractor into him. And they said, we'll have the guy on the radio who announces he's in the hospital and he's recovering. And as quiet as it can be, but we know it's there. So for the record, they had it down there.
Well, that movie is such a mixture of, slapstick humor and comedy, and of course, it spawned action figures and dolls and such. But at the same time, it has a very sort of dark undercurrent. People actually are killed in the movie. I mean, it was unique for that time, for that movie to have such a mixture of violence and comedy. It was sort of groundbreaking in that way, I think. In working with Joe Dante and James Cameron in The Terminator, how would you compare their styles working with, at the time, cutting-edge special effects and such, and working with Roger Corman, fast-paced, working on very, limited budget, but also making great work, great, very entertaining movies. But how would you compare their styles as far as the working, relationship with them?
I really do. Roger has got his own style, and most of the directors who worked for him, they kind of copy that style.
Mm-hmm.
It's slow, it's easy, it's not rushed. It's rushed, but it's done quietly.
Mm-hmm.
He says, all right, that's a take, let's move on to the next one.
Right.
And you've only done one take.
Right.
And you've got all the mistakes in there.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron was pretty much the same. I don't know how he is today, but at the time, he was very quiet, very calm.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, he went on to make the highest-grossing movie ever, still to this day, Titanic. And I just wondered how that kind of the comparison between working with someone that works with big, cutting-edge special effects, at least at the time, cutting edge, and working with Mr. Corman. In looking over all your roles that you've done so many. You've done several television roles. You've been in some of the Star Trek spin-offs. Pretty much any television show that's considered a classic, you've appeared in at least an episode or two. How would you compare working in movies and working in television? Is there a big difference, or is it just a matter of budget or shooting more quickly?
No, there's not much difference. I think the newcomers to the business think there's a difference, but there isn't any difference. In the old days, you worked. If you got a 5-day schedule or a 6-day schedule, you work it, and you get your film made. Today, the young kids that are in the business, they kind of think that there is a difference. They think there's more time in the movies than on the TV, but there isn't.
Well, there will be a retrospective of your work tomorrow evening, I believe at 5, and followed by a Q&A session with you.
Oh, God.
Are you surprised about that? Did you know?
I heard rumors about that.
Well, yeah. And covering some 40 of your films, I believe, 40 or more of your films. And in looking back at all the films you've been in, you mentioned The Howling, that's your favorite Joe Dante role. Is that your favorite role, period, or do you have another role that you hold in higher esteem?
No, I'd say I don't have a favorite role. I don't have a favorite picture. I don't have a favorite part. It's just certain parts stand out, and The Howling was like for a brief scene that I was in in the alley. I just loved the way this guy worked, meaning me.
Right.
I just loved the flow that was in there.
Right. When I think about character actors growing up, you know, I was, of course, into genre movies, and of course, you know, The Howling, The Terminator, Gremlins, they simply stand out as some of my favorite movies of all time, and you're in all of them. and and before I let you go, and I know you've been asked this story before, and if you wouldn't mind telling us, for the viewers here that may not have seen it or may not have heard the story, tell us one more time how you instilled some respect in the Ramones on the set of Rock and Roll Nightmare.
Yeah.
I heard there were some issues that that you had with them.
I had no issues with them. They had a I guess you call it a roadie. He was a guy. They called him the Clown, and they kept him around for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do little things that he thought were funny. And we were shooting a picture of Rock and Roll High School, and I remember this. We were shooting downtown L.A., and the second assistant director came to me and he said, I was playing a cop. He said, don't wear your uniform until we're ready to shoot. I said, why? He says, snipers. Anyway, one of the girls had a birthday, and we were shooting at night, and we expected her at 12 o'clock, if close we could come to it, to celebrate her birthday. And they sent out to Ralph's or some market. They got her a birthday cake, and they hid it. Well, this clown thought he was funny, and he started messing around, and he threw the cake at people and this and that. Right. The cake was gone, and I just got so mad. And I said, go get another cake. He said, we're going to get a cake in this neighborhood at this hour. I said, get a cake. I'm going to take you outside and work you over if you don't get a cake.
Right.
So he went and he told his boss, Ramon. Well, I didn't hear about the rock group at the time. I'm sorry to say. I didn't know they were famous or not.
But respect was due, and you
Yes.
called him on it. Well, once again, like I say, there is going to be a retrospective Saturday evening at 5. I will be there, and I will be at his table getting my box set of Roger Corman movies signed. And terrific meeting you. Thanks so much for taking the time with us, Mr. Miller.
My pleasure.
Dick Miller, the one and only. From Texas Frightmare Weekend, this is Jay Real. Stay tuned.